Yes, everyone, welcome back. It's going off. There is, well, not long, actually. 9 p.m. Wednesday. That's tomorrow, for those who don't add up too good. Just over 24 hours. Remember the time, remember the date, because that is the deadline for the second bids to be submitted for Manchester United Football Club. And at the moment, there is somewhere in the region of half a dozen potential bids going in. But the two that everyone are talking about, the two-horse race that everyone has made it, Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Al Jassim and the Qatar bid. Are we finally on the verge of the Glazers out? It's mad to think that it's finally almost over. I've had Glazer ownership for around half of the time I've been a Manchester United fan, which is nuts to think about. In fact, it's longer. Since I've been a match-going United fan, at least. Anyway, so I started going in 1990. We had 15 years before they bought us, and it's been 18 years since. So it's actually longer since been a match-going fan. It's crazy to think that in that time, we've had to deal with this ownership group, but it could be about to come to an end. The Telegraph has been reporting it is understood that the opening bids for the club fell short of the Glazers' $5 billion plus asking price. But that's tactical negotiation 101. You never go in with your true price. And actually, even when buying a player, you go in, half the price of what you're finally willing to pay as your opening shot. So, you go in there and lowball them, kick the tyres around a little bit, tell them it ain't worth what they think it is, try and get the price down. And then if you're lucky, you're the only person buying it and you might get away with a cheap price. Unfortunately, for whoever does end up buying us, there's more than one interested party. Jim Ratcliffe via INEOS are set to bid. And the Telegraph are saying that Ratcliffe insisted he will not be sucked into paying a stupid price, but said his interest in buying the club is being driven by a desire to win things, something that we can all align with as fans. Sky Sports have reported that Sheikh Jassim's Qatar group are ready to bid and are confident that the Glazers will sell. Sky also mentioned there's a third party going under the radar, which is the Elliott Investment Management. They've also made it through to the second stage of the process, but Sky say that the firm is said to be offering funding rather than looking for a takeover. So we've potentially got a couple of options on the table here, including keeping hold of the Glazers. But I think the final scare about, they might not go, they might just get funding, I don't think that's going to happen. I think they will sell. I think they are aware of how they are seen, and I think this is just a scare for everyone thinking that they might stay. I think they'll go. I think they'll cash in their chips and then hopefully never darken our doors ever again. All bidders seem to have been all other bidders, I think it would be fair to say, because there's been a bit of talk. I mean, Sir Jim Ratcliffe's doing a lot of talking, and I'm not sure that bodes well for if he bought the club. But it seems like the other bidders have been scared into keeping a bit of a lower profile after Raine, the bank running the process, kicked off about the last time everyone went in. My own views on this, neither. I don't want to be owned by a state. It sounds like there's a potential get out of jail card here with it being, they're talking up that it's Jassim and the group is independent wealth, not state wealth. Whether I believe that or not is another thing, but you better believe it. If they do buy us, that's the argument we'll be throwing back to everyone who's accusing us of sports washing, even if there might be an element of that anyway. Jim Ratcliffe angle brings with it more debt on the club, and whether that's directly on the club or on INEOS, which will then have pressure on the club to make sure we're delivering dividends which are greater than the debt that they've incurred on us, is another thing. I don't want debt. So out of these two options, or the third option with it being the Glazers keep hold of it and get investment, none. I don't want any of those options. But I also didn't want the Glazers, and I've put up with them for 18 years. So I'll put up with whatever we end up with. I'm in this for life, man. I'm ride or die. I would lean towards a Qatar bid, but I think there's connotations of the Qatar bid, especially with the sports washing side of stuff, that don't seem palatable to me. I would lean to that over the more debt, though. Let's see what some of you guys are saying in the comments. Don't just put Jim Ratcliffe or Qatar. Give me a couple of sentences on why in the comments below, and I'll read some of those out, because otherwise it goes too fast. We can't read it, and we don't actually get any conversation or sense. Biaki says the guy's name is Al Thani. The Thani family has run Qatar since it was founded. Darren says so much money wasted by the Glazers. Their whole reign at the club will be looked at as a money grab. And you know what? The biggest heist is yet to come from the Glazers, because they walk away from the casino after putting nothing in, basically holding onto a piece of paper for as long as they could, and then walking out at the right time. Frank says, I'm worried about them not selling. Is it also possible that other Prem clubs can prevent the takeover? I don't think there's any other Prem clubs can take it. Kevin says, is Ratcliffe a better option than the Glazers? At the moment, we don't know. You would assume so, but we don't know. At least he's talking about winning trophies. They've never had any sort of desire to do that. And Mr. Decani says Jim hasn't exactly been successful with Nice. No, they also have a Swiss club as well, and likewise in that one a little bit. Sean says I'd rather have debt than sports washing, and Carl says Qatar for a fresh start without debt. So I think the only thing we can guarantee on this front is that United fans are not unified behind any particular thing. I think online, from what I can see, people are lining up a little bit more behind Qatar, but there's concerns with either. And obviously, I think the one thing we can all unite on, I mean, I'm going to throw it out there, but I think the one thing we can unite on is that option 3, the Glazers get some investment and keep on trucking. I don't think any of us want that. Is anyone's like, yeah, a bit of investment, we keep holding the Glazers? Is anyone sitting there going, that's exactly what I want. That's my shit. Seth says, Hodgson's choice, debt and greenwashing or sports washing. Nengified says, well, I'd say Al Thani because he looks like a real go-getter. Maybe Jim, but I'm drawn to Al Thani because he does have the cash. Shaq says, I want an owner who wants to see the club succeed on the pitch and resolve off-field issues. State ownership means nothing nowadays. I don't think it means nothing, but I think it's probably going to be a lot more prevalent as we go on. Gary says, I'd love a British owner to own United, but every day I think it's going to be Qatar ownership. I couldn't give a shit where they're from. My ideal is fan ownership, and it would be me, you guys, United fans across the globe owning us. But how realistic is that? Probably not at all realistic. Peter says, Ratcliffe and Glazers, nice people. A comment I just saw before saying we need huge investment in the training ground, the stadium, and in players. For me, I don't actually think you need that much investment in terms of cash injected into the club. The stadium will be costly. The redesign, redevelopment, or whatever it ends up being of Old Trafford, that will be costly. There's no two ways around that. The training ground, it needs a little bit of an update, but I don't think it needs knocking down and starting again, £100 and something million spending on it. I don't think that's the case. You know, they have got excellent gym facilities. All right, some of the tiles might need a bit of a freshen up and this, that, and the other. But like, realistically, for football, you need cones and balls and nets and space, and we've got that. Realistically, like, you can get a little bit more technical than that, or if you got those fancy little free kick machines that jump up when you take a free kick, great. Are they that much better? You know what I mean? Like, you don't necessarily need to go to those kind of crazy lengths in terms of your training. It'd be nice for us to have a cutting-edge training ground, of course. And in terms of the players, the club generates enough money itself that if we hadn't been burdened with the debt of the Glazers, we could have spent another 1.5 billion on transfers and really made everyone cry. And that's where I'm looking for us to go. I want to make opposition fans cry again. The Big Labrowski says, I would honestly rather see the training ground entirely revamped to be state of the art, even if it isn't better than the next guy's City, then it isn't good enough for United. P. Savage says, how much backlash from the Premier League will there be if the Qatari bid is successful? Well, they allowed Saudi Arabia to go through, so I don't see what the difference would be. Fresh Prince says, really hope it's not Jim Ratcliffe. Jed says, if it's a new stadium, it should just be called the Theatre of Dreams officially, with Old Trafford having capacity reduced to be a secondary stadium. Who's having a secondary stadium that holds 78,000 people, though? That's crazy talk. Mesh says, how do I feel about Qatar redeveloping the surrounding areas of Old Trafford? Also, the owners all talk about facilities, but best-in-class staff is just as important. I'd argue staff is more important. I think you can get away with having substandard facilities and a stadium that needs a lick of paint. If you've got the best staff in the world, you'll still win stuff. I think sometimes people can go with the shiny, obvious things rather than the staff. The staff are the most important thing for me. And it's not just about how much money you spend on these things. It's the attitude to be the best in class. It's the attitude to find the best sports science. It's those sorts of things which make the massive difference for me. Yinka says, what happens to Rich and Arnold if the Qataris take over? Because he has given us the best 6 months post-Fergie. He might get to keep his job. At the moment, I think nobody knows. Peter Keller with a super chat there says, how about a small stadium at the training ground like Madrid have and use it for the women and underage teams? Unfortunately, that road at Carrington, and I don't believe you can expand that road either. If you've ever drove into Carrington, it's a single lane track. There's loads of passing places because you can't get more than one road down it at a time, so it would never be suitable for a stadium. But there are some things in that area when it comes to stadiums, so wait and see on that front. Chris says, hope Qatar redevelop the area. Doesn't mean Lou Macari's Chippy will go. Yeah, it depends on what does that mean, the surrounding area of Old Trafford and Stretford. Jan says, revenue last year was 600 and wages 400. That's 200 to everything else. Yeah, wages is high. Lee says, I have a work colleague who supports Palace. Says United fans should acknowledge the Glazers have overseen every single trophy available to United since 2005. Is he wrong? Well, in technicality, no, he's not wrong. But did we win them because of the Glazers, or did we win them because the groundwork for that three-peat that we did and the European Cup win that we had in 2008, was that because of or in spite of the Glazers? Because we didn't exactly spend on superstars and stuff coming into that. The big money signings that propped that up, the Wayne Rooney, the Cristiano Ronaldo, the Rio, that had all been done prior to Glazer ownership. So you can sling it if you think they're taking credit for that. Dea says, Glazers have actually made this club a better business off the field. No, they haven't. They fucking haven't, right? I'm sick of this because the revenues have gone up. Go look at every single club's revenue. In fact, go look at the 10 years prior to 2005, right? And then look at the 10 years post-2005 and tell me that the Glazers did a good job. Manchester United were far and away just outstripping everybody in English football and actually quite a lot of people in world football, if not everybody in world football. We was multiples of our nearest rivals. We have been overtaken, right? Don't tell me that a good businessman allows you to be overtaken. Manchester United at one point were the flagship. Barcelona even stated at one point they just decided to do everything that Manchester United were doing to start increasing their revenues. That's not been the case. Since we were a PLC, that has not been the case. The only thing that they've done that's an impressive thing in terms of commercial is that they managed to sell the naming rights to a training ground that no fucker's allowed to go to for 100 million. That was genius. Outside of that, there's fucking nothing that's been impressive that they've done. Nothing. How many times have I said about having a Netflix for all Manchester United fans? So we harp on about the 1991 Cup Winners' Cup run. You go, cool. Well, for $9.99 a fucking month, I can watch the entire bastard cup run in 4K HD on my telly at home. Bosh. Yeah? Where's that? If Manchester United wanted to be converting people to come and watch the club and support the club, why aren't they commissioning their own documentaries that talk about the romanticism and the history of the club? They've been asleep at the fucking wheel. Don't tell me they're good businessmen, because you know what would make them good businessmen? Running a successful fucking football club, eliminating the debt, spending fucking hundreds of millions on players, and seeing Manchester United lift our 30th Premier League title. That would have been impressive. That would have been good business. All that's happened since is they've seen our market share decrease. If they stayed in charge, we'd be fucking Blockbuster. We wouldn't be Netflix. We'd be fucking done. That's it. They've rode high on the fact that we've gone through 2 recessions and the TV revenue hasn't collapsed. We saw the thing that happened with ITV Carlton when the TV revenue collapsed and Leeds United went tits up and ended up in League One. That could have so easily been Manchester United under these fuckers owning us, right? Don't tell me the good businessman. You're fucking absolutely dead wrong. Dead wrong. Robit says, serious question, does MUTV not allow you to watch full matches from the past? I think they've got some matches and some content that you can watch. But why hasn't someone just been told to produce a library of every single match that they've got the footage of and just create a library and fucking monetize it? What's the point in MUTV that hardly any fucker watches, having all of this use of all of these archival footage, make something out of them? You know, allow us to go and just rerun the entire 1999 season online. Do you know how many fucking times we'd have done that? In the last 10 years, I'd have done that 41 times and watched the entire 99 season, full 90 minutes, pre- and post-match analysis in full, right? Absolutely. And Zuo, what sponsorship deals do I think would walk out the door with the Al-Thani takeover? What other potential sponsorships might walk in? I think anything that we've got with Saudi might leave. Saudi, Abu Dhabi, Qatar, Bahrain are all sort of competing with each other. So I think that any deals that we've got, I think there's a telecommunications deal, I believe, regional telecommunications deal in Saudi Arabia, or at least it was. I think that would walk out of the door with the Qatari takeover. What would walk in? Shit, probably loads. Because if he comes in and he goes, I'm going to get United back to the best, I want to see us winning Champions Leagues and winning the league, I think that would spark a bit of a fire, because every time this has happened in recent years, it's been a success. So I think you'd get sponsors jumping on now before the price triples in 3 years. Jed says MUTV is good for pre-season friendlies. That's about it. It's the only time I watch. Relentless says Liverpool have worse owners than the Glazers. No, they don't. No, they don't. Have the Liverpool owners taken 1.5 billion out of the club? No, thought not. Brian says there's too much history within the walls of Old Trafford to tear it down and rebuild, revamp it and make it the biggest and best stadium in Europe. Yeah, I don't even think... Yeah, just do that. Chris says, pretty sure it was rumoured recently United had pulled out of the Saudi shirt deal. The Qatar bid was probably the reason. It's the deal that we've got, I think, is somewhere in the sort of back end. Colin says, stock up on a sausage rolls. Yep, there will be a sausage roll party, and I'm 100% serious of that. Once the Glazers have officially fucking gone, there will be a sausage roll party. Fear not. We're definitely doing that. Lil Yo-Yo with a super chat says, how do I separate Sheikh Jassim being the owner if the Qatar state is behind his bid? Me personally, his bid sounds best, but I hear the concerns. In reality, you probably can't separate them. In practice, I'm going to be going, it's just this guy's money. Why are you hating on him? Probably. Dave Bell says, should build a youth stadium and call it the Busby. Yep, I don't think anyone would have a drama with that. You could easily build a little stadium on that land. Jed says, the madness at Barcelona has put me off fan ownership. Yeah, because, so the presidential model, Barcelona's well interesting, right? So from a fan ownership perspective, what happens is anybody that becomes a directios of Barcelona is technically personally on the hook for that club's losses. Now they're losing $1 billion with a B a season, and they've not yet called that in. So that must be something that's written but not actioned in terms of like the directors have to pay back those debts, because there's apparently all sorts of like, you know, directors or people become a director and then the wife finds out that they're on the hook for their house should Barcelona lose money that season. But it's a good model in theory, at least, because then the directors are not going to allow the club to run into the ground. But the presidential model constantly demands ambitious and lofty signings, which are impossible to be delivered. Or they can be delivered, but the cost of delivering them is absolutely mental. And because you've got to have favour with the fans, you have Lionel Messi going, I want a new contract. And then you go, yeah, well, we can't really afford that. And then he leaks it to the fans groups kick off, and you're like, right, fuck's sake, we're going to have to give him this contract. So it's certainly not perfect, but fan ownership, Real Madrid are fan owned. Athletic Bilbao are fan owned to a certain degree. Most of German football is fan owned. I would look at the likes of Bayern Munich over Barcelona. Bayern Munich are exceptionally run. But yeah, Barcelona, bit of a shit show. Hell Europa says Barcelona is state backed. McNally says, is Bayern fan ownership same as Barca? So it's the 50+1 model. People incorrectly call it 51%, but it's not. It's 50% plus one share. So if you had 100 shares, yeah, it'd be 51% of the shares. But if you had 1 million shares, it'd be 500,001 share, just to give it that singular majority over the other percentage. But the people that own the other side, the last time I saw this, so it could have changed, but the last time I saw this, it was Audi, Adidas, and Allianz owned 33% each of the 50% that was owned by the company, I believe. So Audi, Allianz, Adidas, I think it was them. I think it was them three that owned the other half of, or minus one share of Bayern Munich, with the rest of it being fan owned. Hossam says, does it matter to you if it's a state ownership or not? What is the difference? Quite hard to verbalise exactly what the difference is, but I don't want to be owned by a state because there's connotations with that. Everything that state does, you're linked with. If your owner does stuff and it's a bloke, well, yeah, you're still going to get tarred with that sort of stuff. But a state owning stuff, and state policies then get lined up in a weird way with what the club does, and it's just, you don't need it. Tamim says, I don't get how fan ownership works. Do they buy shares and do they have to fund the transfers? There's a number of ways of doing it. Stretford Paddock is fan owned. So Stretford Paddock is fan owned, and Barcelona's way of doing it is similar to the way Stretford Paddock has been set up, in terms of that there's a membership fee every single year, and as long as you are a member, you are considered an owner. You can't sell a share in the club, so it's not constantly evolving and changing. It's one member, one share, and then you get one vote on club matters. So the socios, which is what Barcelona's members are called, they have a vote on certain things, the presidential elections being a big one. Stretford Paddock, I've got a raft of things, about a dozen things that I'm looking to be voting on. We were waiting for the app. There's been a load of problems with our Android developer on the app, so I'm probably going to have to park deploying it through the app and just go straight into asking some questions before the end of this season, because I want to get the fan votes in there on that. So it's interesting. Dark Phoenix says, didn't hear City fans complaining, or PSG. No, you wouldn't, because a club with history has got something to lose, whereas City didn't and PSG didn't have fuck all to lose. Abhinav says, we need whoever the new owner is to cap salaries, get the stadium back up, get money into the academy and the women's teams, and manage it better. Correct. What are Paddock members called? They are called owners. Wayne says, do you think the sale will be over 6 billion? I have no idea. I have no idea. Berkeley says, exciting times for us regardless of who the new owner is. I think both could get us back on track. However, I have a preference for Qatar solely because of the amount of cash able to play with. Raphael says, we at Sporting Club de Portugal the same. I'm one. I pay a monthly fee, but I can go vote for presidency and other matters. I wasn't aware that Sporting were also fan owned. There you go. Live and learn. And thanks for joining us. Right then. That's it from me. More vids out later on today, and obviously we'll have a big day with everything popping off tomorrow as well, with the countdown on what's going on with the ownership. But cheers everyone tuning in. Make sure to subscribe, and I'll catch you lot in the next one. Laters.